In recent weeks, the geopolitical landscape has been marked by escalating turmoil as U.S. troops reportedly seized oil in foreign territories, igniting outrage, distrust, and a flood of speculation about the true motives behind such actions. The headlines proclaim bold narratives, framing this as an act of necessity to secure energy resources amidst a chaotic global market. Yet, beneath this facade lies a fundamental lie perpetuated by our institutions, that government intervention and military engagement are justified under the guise of national security and fiscal responsibility. In contrast, the stark reality suggests something far more sinister: a preemptive strike to secure assets in a world brimming with financial instability. As the Federal Reserve touts its efforts to stabilize the economy, insisting that interest rates are under control and inflation is merely a passing storm, one can't help but feel a sense of skepticism. The Fed's pronouncements echo the optimism of a magician waving a wand, while in the shadows loom the specters of rising debt, inflationary pressures, and a workforce grappling with the fallout of global disruptions. The disconnect between the messages from those in power and the lived experiences of the average American is growing wider by the day. The reality is that average households are facing unprecedented challenges: skyrocketing gas prices, dwindling savings, and rampant uncertainty about the cost of living. While the government insists that everything is under control, Warren Buffett, often regarded as the Oracle of Omaha and the ultimate insider, provides a different narrative. Buffett is not merely a commentator, he is an actor on the financial stage. As headlines wax and wane with the latest Pentagon briefings and economic forecasts, Buffett's actions speak volumes. In a time when many investors might cling to the hopes of a market rebound, he is quietly selling off stakes in fragile sectors like banks and consumer goods, while hoarding cash. This stark shift is a silent signal, a cue that transcends mere speculation. Buffett is preparing for the storm that he knows is brewing. This is not simply a coincidence. It reflects a calculated strategy rooted in centuries of economic history, an acknowledgement that financial heists, often cloaked as patriotic endeavors, are frequent occurrences throughout time. As governments manipulate assets under the guise of protecting citizens, the layers of deception begin to peel back, revealing the underlying motivations of securing resources at any cost. As global tensions rise and militarization of economic assets becomes more pronounced, Buffett's actions beckon us to act with vigilance. The state of our economy is not as solid as our authorities would like us to believe. Rising interest rates, erratic supply chains, and fiscal policies crafted to bail out institutions rather than people indicate a grim reality. The very foundations of financial stability are under siege. In a world where financial manipulation is normalized, we must question who truly benefits from these orchestrated power plays. The alarm bells are ringing, yet the majority remain blissfully unaware, lulled into complacency by the propaganda of prosperity. The reality, however, is stark and requires an awakening to the hidden currents shaping our future. The fabric of society is fraying as trust erodes, revealing a rift between the privileged elite who broker deals behind closed doors and the everyday citizen who struggles in silence. While society is fed the narrative of safety through central command, the truth remains, lost beneath layers of bureaucracy and deceit. As we delve further into this crisis, the roles of both the media and the government will continue to clash against what Warren Buffett symbolizes: prudence in the face of chaos. Those who heed the warnings and analyze the movements of those with insider knowledge, like Buffett, will be better positioned to navigate the unfolding financial epidemic. To ignore these subtle signals is to gamble not just with wealth, but with stability. In the end, the stakes are higher than they appear, and it is time for the silent majority to awaken to the unfolding drama, a heist we can no longer afford to overlook. To understand the dramatic implications of U.S. troops seizing oil in foreign territories, we must explore a concept that, at its core, illustrates the fragility of our current economic system. Picture, if you will, a family-run grocery store in a small town. For years, this store has thrived, built on the trust of the community and a reputation for providing quality goods at fair prices. The shelves are well stocked, the produce fresh, and the owner knows each customer by name. However, a slow, creeping change begins to destabilize this once reliable establishment. As disruptions occur outside the grocery store, the global supply chain falters because of geopolitical turmoil. rising costs of goods, and local booms and busts. The store faces challenges that it has never encountered before. Suddenly, the owner finds it increasingly difficult to maintain inventory. Prices rise, and customers cut back on their purchases. In response, the owner begins to take desperate measures, sourcing subpar products to maintain profit margins, increasing prices further to cover costs, and even reducing employee hours to preserve cash flow. Eventually, the store, which was once a cornerstone of the community, begins to operate in chaos, struggling to maintain relevance in an increasingly volatile market. Now, let's consider the deeper implications of this analogy. The grocery store represents our once stable economic system, nurtured by trust and the expectation of fairness. The community's reliance on the grocer is akin to our dependence on institutions, governments, and economic policies. The external factors disrupting the grocery store, the escalating costs, erratic supply chains, and political maneuvers, mirror the turbulence spawned by decisions made by leaders cloaked in a facade of authority. In the grocery store scenario, the initial instinct to seize whatever can be salvaged may resonate with the actions of our government today. Rather than addressing the core issues, creating a stable supply environment, enhancing production capabilities, or fostering relationships with other nations to secure necessary resources, the focus shifts to short-term solutions. Just as the grocery store begins to cut corners and pass on costs to its loyal customers, our government resorts to more ostentatious measures, such as military interventions or strategic asset acquisitions. This, dear viewer, is the essence of the fundamental lie. It leads us to believe that these desperate acts are necessary for stability, when in reality, they only serve to deepen the malaise. Moreover, the grocery store's traditional dynamics unravel, leading to unsustainable practices. The owner, increasingly desperate to maintain profits, neglects the quality of goods, resulting in declining customer loyalty. The community begins to seek alternatives, other stores or farmers' markets that offer transparency in pricing and a renewed commitment to quality. What was once an irreplaceable anchor in the community fades into obscurity as trust diminishes. The same fate looms over our financial institutions and governments. As military actions unfold under the guise of national security, the average American watches helplessly as inflation creeps into their lives. The rise in costs may be likened to the grocery store hiking prices while shuffling crumbs of assurance that everything is well. Subsequently, households must make increasingly painful choices to mitigate the financial strain. Their own financial grocery list, encompassing decisions to cut spending, rethink investments, and even reconsider retirement plans. In this tumultuous environment, the question must be raised. What happens when the parent institution, the government, turns adversarial by prioritizing acquisitions and control over transparent economic stewardship? The grocery store analogy emphasizes just how quickly trust can evaporate, leaving families scrambling for alternatives as what they once deemed essential starts slipping through their fingers. The trust in government is similarly fraying, and when it disappears, it leaves a vacuum of uncertainty that invites chaos. Ultimately, this analogy does more than simplify our current economic turmoil. It paints a clear picture of a system cracking under pressure. The disparity between government proclamations of stability and the lived reality of ordinary citizens has never been so stark. As the grocery store owner chases survival through questionable tactics, we see our institutions engage in similar desperate measures, perpetuating a cycle of insecurity without addressing the root causes. The old system, much like the grocery store besieged by chaos, has broken. Now, as we stand on the precipice of financial upheaval, we must question not only the motives of those wielding power, but also the sustainability of a system that offers little more than thinly veiled desperation disguised as protection. Imagine it is Tuesday morning. The sun rises, casting a pale light over your neighborhood as the world stirs into action. You sit at your kitchen table, sipping coffee, reviewing your accounts online. You expect the usual routine: bills, maybe a bit of savings, and plans for the coming week. But as you log in, you notice something is off. Your bank account has a zero balance. You blink, refresh the screen, hoping it was a glitch, but the numbers remain stubbornly unchanged. A wave of disorientation floods you. Panic begins to creep into your thoughts. What you don't realize is that the fabric of stability you've relied on is unraveling. The phone in your pocket buzzes with notifications from friends discussing the latest news. The U.S. troops have seized oil in foreign territories. A storm of outrage brews online, and amidst the noise, you find yourself feeling unsettled. The headlines proclaim it as a move for national security, but the signs of a deeper issue haunt the periphery. You feel the weight of uncertainty pressing down, heavy and suffocating. Suddenly, you recall the glib reassurances from officials just last week. Everything is under control. But are they? As you glance over the news articles, doubt creeps in. You are exhausted from the ups and downs, the inflation that has transformed your grocery bills into daunting monthly rituals. Gas prices descend into absurdity, ruining your plans for weekend getaways. What was once casual fill-ups on your way to work is now a contentious budgeting debate that looms over your family. You look across the table at your partner, their brow furrowed as they pore over the household budget for the umpteenth time. You take a breath as you consider laying it all out. What if your job was impacted next? What if the wave of layoffs reaches your company? You remember a colleague mentioning whispers around the office about downsizing and further cost-cutting measures. What would happen to your mortgage, your children's education fund? Entrapped in this nightmare, you can only hold on to an increasing sense of dread. A job loss is no longer an abstract concept. It feels imminent. Later that day, you attempt to swipe your debit card at the local grocery store. The cashier's smile falters as she informs you of the uncomfortable truth. Your card is declined. A familiar knot forms in your stomach as the people behind you in line stare, impatiently waiting. The embarrassment washes over you, a harsh reminder that your financial buffers have worn thin. You grumble an excuse, rush out of the store, and sit in your car, heart racing and breath heavy. Your instincts scream that this is more than a simple inconvenience. It's a symbol of a broader system failure. As you drive back home, the streets appear eerily busy. Inflation is everywhere, yet the government's assurances seem to echo a hollow promise of prosperity. Small business owners you pass display going out of business signs, layers of struggle etched into their faces. Families chat animatedly about next week's gas price hikes and how they will have to change their plans. You notice the distraught expressions of a woman at a bus stop, clutching a flyer for an upcoming community meeting on local job creation. A futile attempt to grasp at a sense of normalcy in the chaos surrounding them. You arrive home and plop down on the couch, trying to distract yourself with television. News anchors speak in soothing tones about the economy rallying back, military actions deemed necessary, yet words feel insufficient in the face of mounting uncertainty. You want to believe. You want to trust. But what you see contrasts sharply with their narratives. You find the dissonance unbearable as the truth gnaws at your insides. They are forcing you to question your own reality. You remember Warren Buffett's quiet movements, selling off positions while others cling to the fallacy of growth, amassing cash as a storm brews on the horizon. There is wisdom within that silence, a signal that screams loudly in a chorus of denial. While others remain blissfully unaware, you are left with the impending sense that things must change. If you are enjoying topics like this and want to stay informed about the real risks, consider following our channel to delve deeper into these unfolding realities. You can no longer afford to remain complacent. The game has changed, and for those willing to see, a path through the tumult remains. The echoes of history reverberate through the halls of time, and if we take a moment to pause and reflect, we can discern a troubling pattern that reveals the impending financial storm. The truth is, our current situation is not new. It is the latest iteration of a cycle that has repeated itself throughout various epochs, bringing with it a familiar sense of dread and uncertainty. To understand the implications of the recent military actions under the pretext of national security, one need only to examine similar events from our shared past. The Wall Street crash of 1929 serves as an initial reference point to highlight how the powerful often act in their own interest, while claiming to act for the collective good. The Roaring Twenties led to unprecedented speculation and investment ballooning into a bubble waiting to burst. And when it did, those at the top, the market insiders and government officials, were quick to scramble for solutions they believed would protect their power and wealth. The results were catastrophic for the average American, many of whom lost their life savings as financial institutions crumbled. The government's response to prop up banks and businesses seemed noble, yet the real outcome reflected a distressing truth. Those in power prioritized their interests, leaving the common man to bear the brunt of the fallout. Fast forward to 1937, where we find ourselves again grappling with the aftermath of government action. The Roosevelt administration, in an effort to curb inflation and stabilize an economy still reeling from the Great Depression, decided to impose fiscal conservatism. The unintended consequence of their decisions led to a second recession within just a decade. Unemployment rose, consumer confidence plummeted, and the harsh reality was that the economic recovery they so desperately sought was snatched away, caught in the snares of political incompetence. Once more, the disconnect between the proclamations of prosperity and the lived experiences of ordinary citizens became glaringly obvious. Moreover, we observe similar dynamics in the late 1970s, best remembered as the era of stagflation. The oil crisis of the time, spurred by political discord in the Middle East and the OPEC embargo, resulted in soaring energy prices while the economy stagnated. Policymakers again acted under alarming pretenses. Rising costs led them to resort to monetary tightening, squeezing households already burdened with high inflation. Once more, the message from authority clashed violently against the everyday realities of American life. The government's intervention, framed as the necessary response to external events, masked a deeper truth. It was their miscalculations that laid the groundwork for such turmoil. Let's not overlook the events of 2013 in Cyprus, a stark reminder that desperation can lead to actions that betray the very citizens one is meant to protect. When the Cypriot government, under duress from international creditors, imposed a controversial bail-in on bank deposits, it sent shockwaves through Europe. Citizens watched in horror as their savings were siphoned off to cover bank shortfalls under an ominous facade of economic stability. Once again, the powerful acted, claiming to do so for the greater good. But in reality, they placed their interests above those of the very individuals they served. This tragic sequence of actions revealed that when push comes to shove, survival instincts prevail over principles of fiscal responsibility. History has a way of repeating itself, and in each of these scenarios, we find common threads woven into the fabric of economic failures. Governments crafting narratives of necessity while engaging in actions that ultimately undermine the stability they claim to provide. This is not a coincidence, but rather a disturbing reflection of human nature and institutional failings. As we peer into our current realities, it is essential to remind ourselves that the themes of deception and desperation are perennial. The recent seizure of oil by U.S. troops, couched in the rhetoric of national security, echoes the very sentiments that have characterized past crises. Just like in 1929, 1937, 1970, and 2013, we are being told that the status quo must be upheld, that radical actions are necessary for stability in the face of chaos. Yet time and again we have witnessed that such actions often lead to only further devastation for the very populace they claim to protect. Thus, the thesis remains validated. This time is not different. While the circumstances may change, the core dynamics persist, demonstrating that as long as those with power engage in tactical moves to secure their position, the common citizen will be left glaring into an abyss of uncertainty, grappling with the repercussions of ill-conceived policies and misguided interventions. It is our duty to learn from these historical echoes, ensuring that we maintain vigilance in the face of recurring patterns, lest we find ourselves ensnared by the same deceptions once more. The headlines declare national security as the mantle under which troops seize oil from foreign territories, masking an alarming reality beneath these noble justifications. While society's gaze is glued to the surface-level implications of this militarized asset acquisition, a more profound, insidious hidden crisis remains obscured from view. The underlying physical infrastructure of our economy is crumbling, and the legislative frameworks proposed to address it are designed to do anything but. This complex interplay of power and manipulation unveils a troubling truth. The Federal Reserve and government policymakers are advocating for solutions that can only exacerbate the very issues they claim to resolve. Beneath the clamor of inflation statistics and military maneuvers lies a deteriorating foundation on which our economy precariously stands. We are witnessing a fundamental breakdown of the physical infrastructure that supports not only energy distribution, but also essential goods and services across the nation. As our leaders construct narratives around immediate crises, they conveniently ignore the long-term consequences of their actions, much like a magician directing the audience's attention to dazzling illusions, while the elephant in the room goes unnoticed. The rise in inflation that affects every facet of daily life is not merely a symptom of global disturbances. It is compounded by a decades-long negligence regarding our infrastructure. Roads, bridges, energy grids, and public services, once the pride of a burgeoning nation, are now susceptible to the effects of degradation and disrepair. Instead of an earnest investment in the renewal of these critical systems, the government's purported solutions revolve around a mishmash of digital currencies, capital controls, and excessive money printing, each designed to stave off immediate economic discomfort while sowing the seeds for far greater chaos. Consider the proposal of central bank digital currencies, CBDCs. In theory, such mechanisms could streamline transactions and enhance governmental oversight. Yet, at what cost? The implementation of CBDCs could strip consumers of autonomy, forcing them into a system defined by pervasive monitoring and control under the guise of financial stability. The erosion of privacy and individual freedom is the real price paid as governments gain the ability to track financial behavior with unprecedented precision. It is a Faustian bargain, whereby convenience is traded for a level of surveillance previously reserved for a dystopian future. Further compounding these issues are the capital controls that might be enacted as an urgent response to financial instability. Such measures would limit the free movement of capital, restricting individuals' abilities to engage in commerce without consent from bureaucratic overseers. As governments fret over the populist uprisings that inevitably rise from misinformation, the instinct to tighten the grip on economic freedoms mirrors the same desperation we see manifesting within those failing grocery stores as they choke on their own self-imposed constraints. Capital control will not only stifle innovation, but will also decimate average households' ability to respond to ever-shifting economic realities, ultimately reinforcing the very barriers to recovery. Then, there is the relentless printing of money, an exercise that has increasingly become a desperate remedy for failing economies. While authorities herald expansive monetary policy as a way to flood the economy with cash, the enduring consequence is the dilution of value. Every dollar printed diminishes purchasing power, amplifying the struggles ordinary citizens face at the grocery store and the gas pump. If new funds are channeled into the machinery of government rather than revitalizing the physical infrastructure that ensures mobility and commerce, they merely serve to bolster an already strained system, pushing it further along the precipice. This destructive cycle is worsened by a profound irony. While government actions are framed as protective, they often lack any genuine intent to address the ailments plaguing our economy. The push for military actions to seize resources comes peppered with alarming rhetoric about financial stability. Yet this approach perpetuates a cycle of devastation, laying bare the fragility of our infrastructure and the misguided priorities that dominate policymaking today. The intricate web of government policies, societal complacency, and institutional dishonesty converges, creating an illusion of control while amplifying anxiety and uncertainty among the populace. As the strategies employed appear not only reactive but catastrophic for the very foundation of economic stability, we must confront a stark reality. This is not merely a fleeting crisis. It is the manifestation of systemic decay. Warren Buffett remains poised in the shadows, navigating the fallout of this intricate dance between manipulation and fragility. Those attuned to the subtle signals in the market stand to gain. However, many remain oblivious to the reality unfolding around them. Embracing transparency, maintaining vigilance, and continually questioning the narratives fed to us will be crucial as we traverse these turbulent waters. The failure to acknowledge and confront the barriers erected by our institutions is a heist that jeopardizes not just our current well-being, but the future of generations to come. Warren Buffett, the venerable oracle of Omaha, is not merely an observer in the financial landscape. He is a participant whose choices reflect insights often overlooked by the broader market. In light of the recent military actions to seize oil, a harbinger of instability that threatens to shake the foundations of economic trust, it's vital to scrutinize his strategic movements within his portfolio. What is Buffett divesting from, and what is he embracing as we teeter on the brink of a financial crisis? The answers may elucidate a pathway through the turmoil that lies ahead. In recent months, Buffett has signaled a clear retreat from sectors riddled with fragility. His divestment from banks is particularly telling. Once viewed as stalwarts of the financial system, many banking institutions have come to be seen as teetering on the edge of instability, amidst the flooding tide of rising interest rates and increasing debt burdens. Buffett is acutely aware of the ticking clock that looms over this sector. The unsustainable practices that have crept into their operations reveal a desperate scramble to maintain profitability at all costs. An environment characterized by tight margins, rising defaults, and erosion of consumer confidence signifies the impending collapse of an outdated paradigm. By liquidating his positions in these fragile banks, Buffett is not closing the door on opportunity. Rather, he is fortifying his stance for the long term. Additionally, he has begun to pivot away from consumer goods, a sector that historically provided stability with recurring revenue streams. The backdrop of relentless inflation and diminished buying power has diluted consumer purchasing ability, compelling many households to tighten their belts. Companies within this sector face the daunting challenge of balancing price increases against dwindling consumer demand, a precarious position that Buffett recognizes can breed calamity. By stepping back from consumer goods, Buffett is taking a calculated step away from speculation, acknowledging that the consumer's ability to spend is faltering, and thus, it's wiser to seek refuge in more stable alternatives. Conversely, Buffett's recent acquisitions tell a different story, one that aligns with the tangible and the real. He is making strategic investments in energy, a sector that, despite its recent volatility, holds intrinsic value grounded in the fundamental need for resources in times of crisis. As the U.S. military seeks to secure oil assets abroad, the implications of this geopolitical maneuver are clear. Energy is not just a commodity, but a pillar upon which economic stability can be built. Buffett's investments in energy companies reflect a long-term vision rooted in survival rather than risky speculation, understanding that energy will remain a fundamental cornerstone in a world increasingly disturbed by conflict. Railroads represent another avenue for Buffett's investments, a sector that is often overlooked yet remains indispensable to the transfer of goods and commodities. In an increasingly interconnected world, the reliability of transportation infrastructure will play a pivotal role in navigating supply chain disruptions. By channeling funds into railroads, Buffett positions himself strategically to benefit from the tumultuous shifts in the market, preparing for a future where physical goods and transportation networks can determine a nation's resilience. In tandem with these investments, Buffett has prudently turned to short-term treasury bills as a safe harbor during this financial storm. As the market thrashes and uncertainty reigns, the allure of liquidity and safety grows. Holding cash reserves and T-bills allows Buffett the flexibility to capitalize on opportunities that may arise as the broader economic deleveraging unfolds, a discipline that few possess in times of unceremonious chaos. For Buffett, survival translates into liquidity. It is an acknowledgement that the next wave of economic upheaval will require a measured and strategic response. Ultimately, the stark dichotomy between what Buffett is selling and what he is buying encapsulates the difference between survival and speculation. His portfolio is a calculated roadmap through the fog of uncertainty. He recognizes that while the headlines may scream of temporary victories secured through military and political maneuvers, the underlying landscape is one fraught with fragility and deception. Buffett's actions whisper a powerful lesson that transcends borders and economic theories. In times of upheaval, the prudent must prepare for the storm, while others cling to the illusion of stability. This discernment, the ability to separate real assets from hollow promises, will become the hallmark of survival in the years to come. It is an admonition to us all that in this era of chaos, we must learn not just to react, but to strategically position ourselves for a future where the tides of uncertainty could wash away much of what we once regarded as solid ground. As we stand at the precipice of potential economic catastrophe, it becomes paramount to arm ourselves with practical steps that fortify our financial positions against the chaos that looms ahead. The recent seizure of oil by U.S. troops, an action cloaked in necessity but underpinned by desperation, should serve as a wake-up call. We must take proactive measures now to safeguard our futures, and I urge each of you to consider the following survival guide carefully. First and foremost, I emphasize the importance of liquidity. In a world where financial systems can falter without warning, having immediate access to cash is your first line of defense. Thus, the first action is to audit your cash reserves. I recommend analyzing your current savings to ensure you have at least 6 to 12 months' worth of living expenses in a liquid form. This isn't just about stashing cash under the mattress. Consider high-yield savings accounts or money market accounts that provide immediate access without sacrificing growth. Remember, Liquidity is your shield against the unexpected. Next, with cash preservation in mind, I urge you to sell non-essential stocks and high-risk assets. As Warren Buffett is demonstrating through his recent moves, divesting from fragile sectors, namely banks and consumer goods, is wise. If your portfolio is littered with high-volatility stocks or assets that do not provide intrinsic value or stability, now is the time to shed those burdens. Instead of clinging to fading hopes of price recovery, take those proceeds and reinvest into safer, tangible assets that can withstand the gusts of economic turmoil. This leads us to our third action item. Prioritize investments in real assets. With inflation eroding purchasing power and instability lurking in the shadows, you should consider reallocating funds into physical assets. Real estate, precious metals, and commodities, particularly energy-related investments, provide not only hedges against inflation, but also intrinsic value. Think of this as anchoring your portfolio. These assets should weather the storm while offering potential appreciation as market dynamics shift. The fourth action point revolves around your liabilities. Audit and reduce debt. In a landscape fraught with uncertainty, high levels of debt can be crippling. Assess your financial obligations carefully. Look to pay down high-interest debts and avoid accumulating new debts. If you have credit card debt, consider a strategy to consolidate or pay that down aggressively. Moreover, if you have a mortgage, investigate refinancing options that could lower your rate or term. The idea is to emerge from this period with minimal obligations, allowing yourself the flexibility to navigate the uncertain waters that lie ahead. Moving forward, a critical aspect of safeguarding your financial future involves self-custody of your assets. In light of the recent actions by authorities, it is wise to consider a shift away from traditional banking methods. Explore options such as self-directed retirement accounts or tangible assets that you can control entirely. Gold, silver, and cryptocurrencies, specifically those you can hold in cold storage, provide mechanisms of self-custody, enabling you to shield your wealth from unpredictable maneuvers by governments and financial institutions. Finally, don't forget to create a sustainable plan for emergency preparedness. Beyond financial assets, assess your physical preparedness as well. Stockpile essential goods that you and your family will require: food, water, medical supplies. These items become invaluable during times of crisis when supply chains falter. In tandem, ensure your personal security protocols are in place. This lends peace of mind knowing you can protect your loved ones and your assets. As we assess the landscape before us, uncertainty reigns supreme. Yet the actions you take today can determine whether you ride out the storm or succumb to its waves. By auditing your liquidity, reducing high-risk exposures, investing in stable assets, managing your debt, practicing self-custody, and being prepared for emergencies, you harness control over your financial destiny. Embrace these steps, not merely as recommendations but as imperatives. The time for complacency has passed. Proactive measures are the only pathway forward amidst the encroaching chaos. Remember, no one is coming to save you, and it's up to you to shape your future. As we draw this exploration to a close, it becomes starkly evident that the turmoil we face is not merely a consequence of recent decisions, but rather the culmination of crises long in the making. The actions taken by U.S. troops, disguised as efforts to secure oil, an asset of paramount significance, have illuminated a harrowing reality that we can no longer ignore. This is not mere militaristic bravado. It signals an era where desperation has eclipsed prudence, a landscape where authority reshuffles the deck amidst a game of financial charades. The stakes are colossal, and the impact ripples through the fabric of our economy and our lives. Yet the cyclical nature of history suggests an inevitable correction awaits on the horizon. Let us not delude ourselves. The system in its current state is like a house of cards, perilously poised for collapse. Time and again, we have witnessed how governmental policies, however noble in intent, frequently culminate in actions that deepen societal fractures. The facade of national security masks a far more insidious reality, one where the average citizen's plight is overshadowed by the machinations of those in power. Indeed, as we navigate this landscape where trust has eroded and the distinction between economic stewardship and exploitation blurs, we must steel ourselves for the challenges that lie ahead. In the coming days, weeks, and months, the The consequences of these actions will unfurl with an inexorable momentum. History teaches us that systems do correct themselves. However, the price of this correction will often be borne first by those who are least equipped to shoulder it. The affluent elite may navigate these waters with relative ease, but it is the everyday citizen who will feel the sharpest pangs of inflation, the strangling grip of debt, and the uncomfortable truths of their financial reality. All while the drumbeats of government assurances play on, only to silence them further from their plight. The weight of self-responsibility now rests heavier than ever on our shoulders. Gone are the times when we could afford to believe there will be a rescue. We are urged to realize that no one is coming to save you. Not the politicians, not the institutions that have promised protection and security. They too are ensnared in an intricate web of their own making. It is incumbent upon each of us to take charge of our destinies, recognizing that in this new landscape, complacency is a luxury we can no longer afford. What must we do as we survey this grim frontier? We must be vigilant, discerning, and prepared. Now is the time to fortify our financial positions, to critically evaluate our dependencies, and to shield ourselves against the coming storm. A myriad of strategies exists for those willing to embrace them, be it through liquidity, real asset allocation, or debt management. The options are viable, but they require action. This is not the time to sit idly by, hoping the tides will favor us. Instead, we must become the architects of our own security amidst chaos. In a world increasingly governed by volatility, act we must, with a resolve that transcends fear. Warren Buffett's maneuvers, his calculated retreats from fragile sectors, are clarion calls to us all. Observe, reflect, and respond. Align yourself with the truths that resonate against the noise. The current upheaval is but one chapter in a long saga of economic cycles. Yet how we write the next chapter depends on our stewardship in this moment. As we close this discourse, I leave you with a somber acknowledgement. While the system may eventually right itself, the path to stability will invariably be fraught with adversity and challenge. Embrace this fact as a rallying cry rather than a lament. In a world that feels ever more precarious, it is your responsibility to emerge prepared. Strength lies not in what is out of reach, but in what you can control. Take heed, fortify your foundations, and remember, no one is coming to save you. The future belongs to those who dare to seize it.